folks. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. Wrapping up a long day here in Eugene, Oregon with a legend of the town, a great musician and a friend of Ken Kesey's, John Swan. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. Hey,
how's it going out there, Jake?
You're talking to everybody, baby. Let me ask you a question. This trip to Stonehenge that was taken in 95.
99.
99. What was the impetus? Was that driven by? What was your role in it, and was that driven by Kesey?
It was the best thing about Kesey was that he always took a big crew with him. You know, like he would get some gig somewhere, and he would bring a bunch of people with him, and that was always a pleasure to be involved in that. And so he put together a play called Where's Merlin? So we were out looking for Merlin, and it was kind of I guess his take on King Arthur kind of story. And I got to be the fool, the drunken fool. So I got to get drunk a lot.
So you got roles as well. I mean, everyone got a role to play.
Everyone had a role.
You got the car. You got the bus over there. Is that right?
We took the bus.
How did that work? I when I read that last night, I could not. I mean, I know it's been done, but I mean, it seems to me like it would be like relatively expensive. I mean, how did you get that done? Especially taking the further bus.
Kesey once said, "Nothing works like money," and so Channel 4 was behind it. So
a local affiliate here.
No, the BBC
in England.
Yeah. And so they were putting together a documentary, and we toured around the British Isles, and we were putting on plays all over the place, Scotland, Ireland, and
incredible. Was it better? Was it better received overseas than here?
It was better received in some places than others. Usually when we did something, it was left open to interpretation. Some people were just like, oh, what the fuck? And some people were like, oh, they would come up to us and they were like, I got it, you know, and they would tell us what they got, and we would listen with open ears, and it was pretty cool.
Well, so, I mean, this sounds, I mean, I've interviewed Mason Williams, and he did, the river with Kesey as the preacher. And I mean, what was Kesey's role? He was Merlin?
No, he was. I think he was like Sir Galahad or something. So we were looking for Merlin.
You were looking for Merlin.
We were looking for Merlin, and so we went to Tintagel, the place where supposedly Merlin was born. We went down in the cave, hiked around, and it was pretty. It was almost surreal. I mean, we had the bus over there, and every night that they would make these cuts and they'd put up on TV across Europe. They would do segments of our trip, and it opened with us in Brighton. That's where the Who did Quadrophenia.
Yeah.
And I remember riding on top of the bus, and I'm standing up on top of the bus, and the Who was playing Magic Bus, and we were driving there in England, and I was just like, this is pretty cool.
You knew when was the first time you met Ken Kesey?
That's a pretty good story. His son Zane and I were good friends, and I met him in college at the University of Oregon. And I had a band called Magic Swan and the Dukes, and we were playing around, and we played at this Tavern Taylor's, and Kesey was affiliated with the
wrestling team.
Well, the wrestling team, he was a wrestler there at U of O. Mm-hmm. And he was also a part of the Beta fraternity. And so they would have an annual barn dance out at Kesey's farm.
Ah, are you kidding me?
And it was fun.
It's a hoedown right there.
And so they hired us to play at the party. and it was kind of a rainy, drizzly Oregon day. I think it was in the fall, and there was a fraternity, the Beta fraternity. They came out in a bus with Alpha Phi sorority, and I knew a bunch of girls from the sorority, and they showed up, and they were like, and before I even got out of my truck, they were like, hey, Swanee, we're out here, and the bus is out here, and everything's day glow, and we're just kind of curious, about this LSD,
Right.
and she's like, they're like, do you have any? And I happen to have some, and they're like, well, we want to try it, and so I was a little hesitant to give it to, people,
College age
rookies,
Yeah,
but,
right.
but
They had never dosed. They'd
never dosed before, and so I thought, to be on an equal playing field, that I should take at least double what I gave them.
Right.
I think I tripled, maybe quadrupled it.
Wow.
And so before I even stepped out of my pickup truck, I had a 1968 Dodge pickup that was this old just beater, it was just raining. I had my gear in the back, and I'm pulling it out, and so I dose, and these girls are dosing, everybody's getting high, and we go into the bus barn, and it's there's a flatbed set up, and there's hay all around. Wow. And there's people dancing and partying, just getting in the groove of
letting the body dance.
And I started setting up my equipment, and my band's there, and we got drums and bass and I think piano, and I'm setting up, and we take a break, and we go out and smoke some weed, and we come back in, and I start coming on, and I'm getting pretty high, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be an interesting night, and
place was pretty filled up too.
Yeah, it was a good, a busload of fraternity, sorority kids, and that was the first night I met Babs too, and
Babs was there.
Oh yeah, Babs was always not too far from Kesey, and so what I remember the best is we started playing, and we were playing like a not fade away kind of thing,
I dig.
like a this isn't working here. What the heck's going on? Anyway, we were playing it. I started playing "It's Not Fade Away" beat when I get high. I was like, that was the only thing I could do, and I'm just like, and we're going, and it's a couple, I don't know, 5 minutes to eternity or something like. We're going. I'm playing this Bo Diddley beat.
Right, you've been playing for hours.
And I'm just like, I'm going, and my bass player, I look over, and he seems like he's about like, he's probably only a couple, 3 or 4 feet from me, but he seems like he's like, about like 30 yards from me or something, and I see him, and he's like going, hey, it's a sing, I could see him. He's like, I was like, get up, sing, and I'm sitting there, I'm thinking to myself, and I'm just like trying to hold it together, and I'm just like doing this thing, and I'm like, I can't sing right now. There's just no way I can sing. And all of a sudden, I see this hand stick up, and Kesey had these really like kind of a very unique hand, these little fat kind of stubby fingers, and I see this hand stick up, and it's coming up from the we're on a flatbed truck, and there's hay in front of it, and I see this hand stick up like in the air, and I don't know what he was doing, but I saw the hand, and I just grabbed the microphone, and I put the microphone into this hand. It was like thing on the Addams Family or something, and all of a sudden the microphone disappears, and I'm like, phew, I don't have to sing, and I keep going along, and Kesey's got a microphone, and so he's
belting it out,
and he just starts going off on his rap, underneath there, and I don't know what the hell he said, there was nothing Kesey liked better than he did.
Well, no, this is what I wanted to ask you about. When you started to work with him over, with Merlin, I mean, were you already an improvisational player? Had you learned how to improvise on the apparatus? And how did Kesey, was every show different every night?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Musically, too, I mean.
Oh, totally.
And how would that happen?
I don't think it was possible for us to do the same thing twice. It would be impossible.
But I mean, differentiate that because he's riffing over the top.
Oh yeah, and I mean, for instance, at that night, he just was happy as a clam to have a band, and he could just banter away just like it was an acid test or something.
So do you think he was propelled by the rhythm in some way too, like just the driving force of a band?
I think he just liked the energy of a crowd. He loved the energy of a crowd and just a happening, a thing. He used to say a thing. We do a thing. It was a happening. This is some kind of thing is going on, and there was always something going on around Kesey. I mean, he was always some event. Whether we're going to, release a book in Las Vegas, or we're going up to a bookstore in Portland, or we're going. Our first big adventure was he put together a band called the Thunder Machine Band. And
did he bring the Thunder Machine with him?
Oh yeah, that was back in 1986.
Wow.
And
wow.
We went from Eugene to Boulder, Colorado, and drove from Boulder to New York City. It performed in New York City, and came back and ended up in Pendleton, Oregon, where we.
You guys had a real gig in New York.
Yeah.
Where was it?
It was in some theater in New York City.
Unbelievable.
On Broadway somewhere.
But I mean, that was like, because I mean,
where he did the John Lennon story. I remember that was.
Was it the original Boise Thunder Machine? I mean, they.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it was the original, but it was the Thunder Machine, the only one that I've ever seen. First time I saw it was at Mac Court in
81.
81.
Unreal, dude.
Yeah.
Unreal show in 81. I mean,
it was so crazy. I was like,
that show. Everybody was
everybody was like, what the fuck is that? What the hell?
What did it look like? Because that was it's. There's no video of it.
It kind of looks like it has like a center and two like points off the end, and so it's like I hear George is building a new one because George's got a new bus.
No, I was in it today. I mean, it's a scale. It's farther. It's called.
Yeah, farther.
Sorry. Yeah. So continue.
I've thought if I had a bus, I'd call it furthest.
So, but I mean, like you traveled with that rig. I mean, was it big enough to get in a horse?
We had a box van, and so it was pretty fun because what Kesey did was it was Kit and Zane and I,
right?
And we were everyone else flew, but we drove the equipment. And so it was like our great adventure because we were in our 20s. I think I was like 23, 24 or something. And so he gave us, we had 2 credit cards. He gave us 2 credit cards. He had, and he gave us each like $2,000 cash, right?
Wow.
And so we had the credit card and we had the cash. And Kit, his dad and mom were running the Springfield Creamery, and he had these yogurt containers.
Oh, you Chuck Kesey.
Yeah, Chuck, and they were full of weed.
This is so beautiful.
Right? They were full of weed, and we had a stash in the back, and so like we would take turns driving, and you would like you'd smoke a joint. We'd smoke like half a joint, and then we'd be driving
like
along.
a big Bob Marley joint.
It was great because it was like there was no like CD players or anything like that, and we mostly listened to AM radio or FM radio, and so you kind of got the vibe of the country, what was playing in the country,
Well, we weren't fully interconnected at that point, so you did have regional radio going on at that time.
Oh, totally. And so we're just dancing around the dial, trying to pick up whatever's going on. And so like I remember there was like Steve Winwood, "Bring Me Your Higher Love," and that was a big song. And Bananarama, Venus was her name. And we continue to hear these songs,
pop music of the day, absolutely.
And we'd smoke a joint, and the other two guys would be sleeping. Maybe one was riding shotgun, but we pretty much drove across the country. And then you'd finish the joint, and then when you got tired, then that was your shift, So we had one joint shifts. So you smoke a joint, and once you're finished your joint, and you're tired of driving, the next person he'd roll up a joint, and then he'd take off. we had some great times on this.
So you met Zane in elementary school, or when did you guys?
I was trying to remember. Oh, I remember when I was going to college, and so it was like 1980. And my roommate at the time knew someone that was friends with Zane, and Kesey was out of town, and they were having a party. Zane was having a party out at the farm, and I got this phone call, and they said, "Hey, there's a party going on out here. You want to come out?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I'm coming!" So I grabbed my buddy, and we head out to the farm, and of course we took LSD.
That was a prerequisite. You just took it before you got there. It wasn't like it was at the farm on hand.
Being really young and adventurous and brave. We just got. My first psychedelic experience was in high school, and I was a junior in high school. I grew up in Portland, and there was this cow field. I'm sure there's apartments in there now, but there was this cow field up in Multnomah, which is right by our high school, and it was kind of a thing that my best friend at the time, his brother had told him about this, and it was kind of this generational thing that your older brother told you about this place and how to identify these mushrooms, and it was psilocybin, similacida, which was the Oregon Liberty Cap, which I think they're all over the world.
As opposed to the poisonous ones, you had to know which ones were psychedelic.
Yeah, that's pretty important.
This is so amazing. This is in the mid '70s, you would say.
This was probably like 1978, and the year we were born.
The year I was birthed.
So we got these mushrooms. We picked a bunch of mushrooms, and having never taken them before, we just took them. They're all muddy, and we chew them up, and they're all, you got mud in your mouth, and you're just sucking these things down, and we go to this midnight movie out in Beaverton, which happened to be Easy Rider, and so I'm sitting there, watching Easy Rider and coming onto these shrooms, and really that just kind of opened the door to my adventures in psychedelia.
Were you playing music at that point?
No, I wasn't playing. I was mostly a skier. I was a ski racer. And
what was the impetus to actually pick up the apparatus for you?
I was playing a tennis racket. And to Jimi Hendrix,
right.
In Berkeley, Jimmy plays Berkeley. He was playing Johnny Be Good, and it was just like the most ripping version of Johnny Be Good ever. And I was playing this tennis racket, and this girl goes, "John, you should play guitar. That's what you should do." And I kind of looked at her, and she was really cute, and I was like, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And so I was like, "I better get a guitar." And so I got a little piggy bank, and I put a little piece of tape on it that said Strat Fun, because I had to get a Stratocaster, and so that kind of got me focused. Now I've got so many guitars, I don't even know what to do with them, but that's how I started playing, and I got a Carlos acoustic, probably for $25-$30 or something.
Did you know Jed Kesey?
I did know him.
You talk about him a little bit?
Not really. Well, I did.
From maybe going to the farm in this.
Well, he died really
83,
and I think the last time I saw him was the Grateful Dead played 3 nights at the Holt Center.
August '83,
which was brand new.
Damn, he died 3 months. He tragically died 3 months later.
Yeah, and that was the last time. And I remember I remember seeing him up in the parking garage, and he was looking for Zane. You know, Zane had disappeared somewhere, and he was like looking for his brother. And that it's just kind of a
What an interesting.
haunting kind of experience. Just he was always looking out for Zane. You know, he was really good dude though.
For someone like me who just like Halt Center 83, 84, that's the bread and butter for me. I never saw the band play.
Oh, it was so fun.
Okay, I got to be honest. I mean, Kesey said, do you remember what he said? He's like, everybody stay in their seats. You know, it's kind of cool watching everybody boogie in front of their seats. It looks like the spaceship, you know. And then he goes, I got to tell you something. He goes, I tried to convince the dead to wear white last night. He's like, I'll tell you something. He's like, I'll tell you a reason why Garcia wears that black shirt all the time. This was 83. He goes, he's trying to save on laundry bills. Only, and then they bust into a stranger. But it's like, this is, I mean, was there something that separated the live, just for cats that are going to watch this and long after we're gone, that, especially pre-Touch of Grey, in a psychedelicized environment like that, what was the difference between that and any other concert?
Well, it was the community, you know. It was like
Drum circles in the parking lot, psychedelicized everywhere.
I just got covered with goosebumps.
Beautiful.
You know,
that's good because that's what I'm channeling because the spirit is here.
It's like for instance, I was at the Portland show and I hitchhiked up to Seattle.
Sure.
And
I think Lesh dosed that night. Actually, that's the rumor there. But yeah, that's a sick show.
And it was a really interesting thing because I remember I had some mushrooms and I had them stuffed in my underwear.
Right.
And I was standing backstage, kind of towards where the backstage entrance was, and I was looking for Zane because I was supposed to meet Zane there for a ticket. And so I'm hanging out there for a ticket. You know, it's like tickets, I don't know, were like $12 or something back then, but that was still a lot of money. And it was all relative. And I was.
That was a lot of money. That was a lot of money.
And some people I knew came walking by, and they had a beer, and they were like, "Hey, Swan, here, have a beer," you know. And I was just like,
yes.
I'm like, I just took the beer, and they walked off, and I'm standing there waiting by this sign or something like that, and all of a sudden these two Seattle cops walk around the corner, and they're like, "Hey, what do you got there?" You know, and you get drinking in public, you know, is no.
Absolutely.
And so I go, these guys just handed me this thing, and they're like, sure, let me see some ID. And so I take out my wallet, and they start going through my wallet, and I'm just like sitting here going, oh shit, you know, here I am, you know, going to a Dead show, everything's like, yeah, you know, life's on, you know, what does he say, when life looks like easy street, there's danger at your door.
Trouble in front, trouble behind.
You know, it's right there, and I'm just like going, oh God, I got these mushrooms on me, and I'm just like, how far is this search gonna go? And they're like going through my wallet, and they find some rolling papers, and they're like, oh, where's the stuff for this? You know, and I'm just kind of like,
oh man, this is not cool.
And they let me go, you know.
Damn.
But I was like, I was sweating. I was sweating, and but. The guys that gave me a ride up hitchhiking, and this is just this community that was developed, and it was like instant, you know. It was like
right. It was seamless.
It was like these ethos, you know. You had these things in common with your fellow deadhead, you know. Which was
what for those cats that are too young to know, because the Dead and Company is not it's cool, but it's not what you're going to talk about. What were the threads?
I felt that there was a certain freedom at a Grateful Dead concert, especially back in the old days when it wasn't so huge.
Right,
you know,
right.
It wasn't
83,
so
man.
Corporate, you know. It's like it was a family. It was this extended family where you look at somebody, you'd see someone, you'd make eye contact, and you'd smile. And and it was like you knew this person. You know, it's like you were connected. It's like you didn't know him, but it's like you felt like you knew him. It felt like this was your friend. You know, it was like because he was your friend. You know, it was because you had this same. It was the freedom to go and to freak freely. You know, and to be in the surroundings where you were safe. You know, that there were people that were going to look out for you. You know, you were going to. I remember down at the Kaiser in like 1980 or something like that, and I had dosed, and I was my sister had taken me, and we were right in front of Jerry, and went right up on the rail, and
Oakland Auditorium maybe in '80.
Yeah, wasn't it called the Kaiser? Oakland
Yeah, it's. I mean, don't even.
And I got so high that I was like, I suddenly left my body,
right,
and I was like, I started going up, and I was up above my body, and I was like looking down, and I could see my body dancing, I could see everybody around me, and I was just like, going, whoa, and all of a sudden and it was really cool at the time, but then all of a sudden I panicked.
Sure.
And I was like, oh shit, who's in my body? You know, I'm like, my mind's up here. Who's dancing in my body down there? I was like, oh shit, my body's gonna be that guy that's wandering around you.
You were fixated
no
on that.
Clothes
Yeah.
Right. It's like, what happened to that guy? Oh, he got too high. But getting back to that community,
ethos.
There was people that would look after you, and afterwards, you know, we're out in front. There was a little park out in front, and I'm sitting in this Volkswagen bus with this older hippie, and I was telling him what happened. He goes, oh, that's astral projection, you know, and he was telling me.
What does that mean?
It's just where you're.
No, I mean, that's one of my favorite bands is the Astral Project.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can't believe you just dropped that name, dude. What did he mean by that?
Well, it's something that happens where you leave your body and you astral project. You go up into the air, and you're like your mind or your soul, your spirit or whatever leaves your body and transcends to a higher plane. And it's, I don't know, maybe it's something that, like Carlos Castaneda, you know, what was that? The Teachings of Don Juan or something, you know, where you leave his body and fly around and stuff. So, but the thing is that you were in an environment that was safe to do something like that. That there were people that had your back.
Were there?
You know? It was this. In that sense, it was the truest freedom. You know, they were in. Right now, you know, especially in this day and age, that freedom is it's going away.
It's tenuous. It's very tenuous.
It's not what it used to be, but the freedom.
How has it changed? I think it's a very important point.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is the data that's collected.
And how does that affect? How does that affect at a musical at a setting that you're talking about?
For instance, you know, just the fact that you're going to the shoreline and you can't get in to see the show because the lines are so backed up because you're all going through metal detectors. You know, to check to see if someone's got a gun, then they're going to go shoot everybody. You know, it's like what the fuck?
Yeah, right.
You know? I mean, that's the kind of thing.
That's a sociological thing too. I mean, that's part of the thing where it says what has happened to mankind, where you're gonna. That
brings up an interesting point that I always liked philosophy, and I could see that automation was going to lead to, as the automation and the population growth, the exponential growth of the population, the accelerated speed of technology, which is just rocketing ahead, to the point where you're talking about autonomous vehicles, like trucks driving 24 hours a day. And what's going to happen to all these displaced workers? What are they going to do? And I had this discussion with Timothy Leary a long time ago about, what's the future going to be like? And
what did he say?
And he says, he goes, I could see a world where, we take care of each other, and we're massaging each other. I mean, I think what he meant by that was that we need to become more human services. The future is not going to be a very equitable, pleasant future if the wealth gap keeps tremendously growing, and the masses down here don't have jobs, and the fraction of the percent that own everything have everything. Oh, what are they going to do with it? Why do they need so much money? Why can't we take care of each other and build water parks that are filled with organic food, that are grown by farmers, that are filled with yoga and sports rehabilitation and water therapy and water slides for kids, and hotels that are full of good food and people taking care of each other. We've got to do something.
Have we gone past that point? It feels to me that in some ways the greed factor is, people are blinded by it at this point. Meaning that the truth doesn't really even matter as long as the money is there, and as long as I guess here's the better question: how do you, John Swan, bend that curve back in your own way? How do you affect positive change in your life? Because it's, whether it's Leary or you or me, it doesn't really matter. I mean, how can you affect positive change in your world?
Well, I think first of all, it starts with you and your family, and you start with your family, taking care of your family, then taking care of your friends, and just being the best human that you can be, and affecting other people's lives, starting right locally, not looking so much about the big picture and about trying to change everything, because the whole greed thing is such a strange phenomenon, and in this era that we're living in right now, the oligarchs and the authoritarian, the blindness that it puts in people. Because when it comes down to it, we're the United States of America. We need to lead the world, and not right now. We're divided. I mean, Aldous Huxley did a speech in like 1959 or 1960, and he started talking about hypnosis and the science behind hypnosis. And he said that 20% of the population can be hypnotized like that. The next 20% can be hypnotized. It takes a little bit more. And then the next 20% is more difficult. Percent can't be hypnotized, right?
Wow.
Well, you start talking about that 40% of the people that can be hypnotized, and you look at the people that back Trump, and where is it? It's right about 37%, and it's stuck right there at that 37%. And the power of Fox, I'm not going to call it fake, well, whatever, propaganda. That's what it should be.
State media, yeah.
I used to always think, how was it that the good people of Germany, because there's plenty of good Germans, there's so many good Germans, that how could they back Hitler? How could they do this? It was always, puzzled me, and it's just that Hitler had these methods of hypnosis, this mass hypnosis. He he would hold these events at night when people were tired. They were more predisposition to be hypnotized, and they would do these grand things. And it was like, I remember being at Pink Floyd, Roger Waters' The Wall concert, and it just dawned on me, because there's that point where he's out there and he's doing this thing, and they're marching, and they're just like, it's so powerful, and it's like you're either with us or we're gonna crush you, and it's just get in line, right? And it's the same thing that's going on right now. That the greed. If you look at Rush Limbaugh makes, I think, $80 million a year, to shoot his mouth off and push hate, which my mom, was lockstep with that stuff, and she died of liver cancer, which I just felt like he poisoned her.
Damn.
You look at
yeah. Well, I think about that a lot, because I listen to a lot of hate radio, and I because I want my daughters to be aware of what they're up against, and those guys are. There's nothing wrong with people that are making an average salary, but they're talking to people that are it's just a self-loathing thing. Kesey was a hypnotist.
What do you do with $80 million? I mean, how much can you eat? How
much hate can you spew, though? Look at the propensity of the damage.
Well, what's the guy on Fox? It's the Sean Hannity. He makes like $40 million a year. It's like,
but their major listening population is people that are completely despondent.
It's obscene.
So I mean,
it's obscene.
Kesey was a hypnotist.
Oh yeah.
Did you see him hypnotize people?
Well, when you define what hypnosis is.
Perry Hyde just said he could take a room and have them transfixed with his ability to tell stories. So maybe hypnotism.
Well, hypnosis is just a way of looking at how the mind works and how we perceive the world around us. And there's really 3 proprietary ways that we look at the world. And it's visual with our eyes, auditory with our ears, or kinesthetic, which is touch. And those are the basic elements of hypnosis. A good hypnotist can figure out, by asking you a few questions, what your proprietary system is. And then once they figure that out, and they take you, it's like going on a journey, and it's pretty easy to do. What you do is you start switching someone's perception. So like you say something like, as you become aware of the feeling of your feet touching the floor, and suddenly you notice someone standing next to you, and you hear the music, or what's that sound? And suddenly you've got these people switching through these different levels, and then suddenly they go from this conscious listening or feeling or looking or whatever into their own mind. They go inside. And that's part of the trick of hypnosis, is just understanding how that works, and so you can do it on a mass scale without even knowing what people's priorities are, by just going through these different levels. And that's how a lot of people take you on journeys, and it's pretty fun to do, actually. It's fun in improvisation.
Absolute. Well, no, I mean, I guess talking to John Swan here before we wrap up, who were some of your favorite jazz guitar players? Maybe you would never consider yourself a jazzer, but what were the great clubs?
I like. It wasn't a guitar player, but I love Mose Allison.
Mose, man, jeez, seventh son, man.
I mean, just because he had this.
He had a funky beat, man.
And just the way he, I don't know, it was just his words were great too. You know, they were just kind of sarcastic. You know, and
What was the hot jazz club in the late 70s, early 80s in Eugene? Latarsky. I've interviewed Don Latarsky.
I used to take guitar lessons
Dude,
from him.
a legendary cat. I'm going to go hang with him tomorrow. He's got his trio here.
Nice.
But
Say hi to him for me.
I will. But I mean, he was one of the cats, man. Like, who were the cats in this town? I mean, Ken Kesey was everything, but he wasn't.
I was a rock and roller and stuff, but you know, Kesey did this thing called the Hoo Ha, and they had Roland Kirk,
blowing a note for a minute and a half.
Yeah, or something with the circular breathing thing, but you know, I mean, my favorite jazz, I guess, would be, you know, probably like everyone, is like Kind of Blue. I mean, I could listen to that forever. I mean, but there's no guitar.
No, there's not. I mean,
but Bill Evans, you know, his piano playing.
Somehow Bill Evans fits in perfectly with Oregon too. I mean,
there's a really good thing on YouTube called Bill Evans, The Universal Mind. Have you seen that?
No.
You gotta look that up. Everybody out there, check it out. Bill Evans, Universal Mind, and it's his brother interviewing him down in Louisiana. And very philosophical cat.
Well, that was just transcribing one of my interviews with Larry Vukovich, pianist. I just found out that Bill Evans wrote Blue and Green, but Miles took it. And one day he came up to him on the street, and he's like, Bill's like, Miles, how about some royalties for that? And Miles sent him a check for $25.
That was nice.
John Swan.
But, you know, I think the thing that we've got to overcome is we've just got to overcome the greed, and I don't know what the answer is, but other than we need to take care of each other and quit love our enemies and make them our friends, because we're all in this together.
But that doesn't drive ratings, okay? So this whole thing, I don't want to be Pollyannish about this. What I'm trying to say is explain how you give me an example of how you have loved your enemy in the recent memory that you can give, because this macro thing, it's too much. What do you do to affect positive? Give me an example of loving thy enemy.
To just stay positive, you know, just not let the people that are bringing the rest of us down sink the ship, and stay positive. That's the key, is you got to stay positive. You got to keep up. You got to stay positive. Stay on track. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like...
Can you give an example of you personally? Because what I'm trying to say is staying positive is one thing, but ultimately bloodshed could occur because of the incessant lying, tribalism, and division. And all I'm saying is, I like that idea, and I think it's legitimate. But I tend to talk the talk on that more than walking the walk. I don't judge people, but at the same time, if your mind isn't open, listen. I mean, but can you say that you try to walk that walk in your daily life? Because this is a pretty progressive town.
Oh yeah, this is the Eugene bubble, you know. And
Tucson's the same way. Yeah, Tucson's the same way in Arizona as well.
You step out, and it's scary out there, and I don't know what's going on, but I'm heading to Costa Rica to go fishing and play guitar on the beach. I mean, I don't know.
What's your message for Ken Kesey looking down on us, and what would he do in your mind in this time? What would he be his approach?
Well, first of all, he would go, He did this humph. And he would probably say, it's up to us to drive the bus. And so keep driving, and, you know, don't veer off the path, and don't get despondent, and stay positive. Create what you want. manifest it. Ask the universe, pray, whatever your spirituality is. You know, I don't know, there's probably 5 big religions, and we got to take care of each other. That's it. You know, it's not us against them. We're all in this boat together, you know. The earth is one little ship. We're on it. It's getting tight, you know.
What was the thing about driving the bus?
It's up to us to drive the bus.
John Swan, love always, man. Great to hang with you, bro.
Right on.
It's the Jake Feinberg Show. I'm out. Later.